Hi, welcome back to West Coast Geeks. I'm your host, Joaquin. How we doing, people? So today's video is Metallic Dragons because Eric demanded it. So enjoy. So you know who's with me.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Derek.
That's right, people. So we are currently doing every Friday the Monster Manual, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the book that launched the game of as far as Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Like that book came
Pretty
out
much,
first, then the
yeah, pretty
player's
much brought
handbook.
modern D&D to
Yeah,
what it is today.
exactly. And then we're also gonna do a video about one D&D. Name sounds stupid, but I guess we're gonna have to put in parentheses when I do the video, sixth edition, because that's what it is, folks. But that's another story, but that's just coming down the pipes along with many other videos in this series, which is a three-part series. We're gonna be doing Chromatic Dragons, and then the last of this little mini series here is Bahamon and of course Yamat. So if you
Tiamat gets a big upgrade from the original Monster Manual.
Oh, hell yeah. You people, and I do mean you people, I don't want no, any comments about any race, doesn't even any particular, but you people need
What do
to
you
go
mean, you
watch.
people?
Yeah, yeah. You people need to go watch our D is for Dragons Monster Manual video. This is the first information that dungeon masters and players ever had about dragons. All right, now that we've done that, we're going to be talking about metallic dragons. And here we go. Wait, wait. All right, there we go. Gold dragons. Gold dragons were the most powerful and majestic of classic metallic dragons. They are wise, lawful good foes of evil and injustice. Gold dragons were very knowledgeable and reclusive. They prefer snow layers and had a cone of fire as a breath weapon. So they've evolved since first edition. And so Eric's here. Fill us in with the fun facts. Take us away.
All right, so gold dragons, like you said, they're the most powerful and the most noble of all the metallic dragons. They are the foe of evil. When it comes to mortal foes of evil, these are probably some of the most powerful, if not the most powerful foes of evil at all. They love to, like all dragons, they are obsessed with greed and making their lairs larger. They like to use old, secluded old castles, old forts, something far hidden away. They're very solitary creatures. They love to eat. They love to eat like their treasure, like some of their treasure, especially gems, pearls, that kind of stuff. They are much more powerful, and they've come a long way since the first monster manual. Like I said, it's all the dragons have, but these guys have really. I mean, you're getting into hundreds and hundreds of hit points for these creatures that live thousands of years. They like a lot of the metallic dragons. They like to like kind of mingle in with humanity. They're not as gregarious as the brass or copper dragons, but they do love to familiarize themselves with the societies that may be around, especially around their lair. Um, like I said, they love the horde. They take very good care in placing magical ward on their vaults. Some of them have multiple layers with multiple treasure hoards. And as they get older, they go in disguise and they go in the humanoid and they visit, cities and towns, and not really to get involved as much as to just kind of catch up on local gossip and visit businesses and seeing what humanity itself is up to. So, they have, as most, and this is coming from fifth edition, so they have a lot of layer actions, the regional effects, they're just like any other dragon. But the gold dragons are really, they are the epitome of good dragons. And one example is comes from the Forgotten Realms campaign's setting. The Oranax, for example, he's a gold dragon that lives in Waterdeep, and he is, I believe, he's featured in the Dragon Heist module as well. He's the guard of the Vault of Dragons. for the Everwinter. What was it? Everember? Do you remember which one that is, Joaquin?
What, for Neverwinter?
Yeah,
Or
he was guarding all that gold, and even though like he knew the gold was ill-gotten, but that dragon greed had caught a hold of him.
he
Never
guards the
Ember, I think it was.
treasury, I believe. It's
Yeah,
been a
and
while
it was
since
like
I've looked at that adventure, but
yeah, it was like a million gold coins,
yes,
and
it is a
he,
crazy amount. Like,
yeah, it is ridiculous. Like the players, they even tell you if the players do manage to get a hold of it, they're not holding on to it for very long.
oh no, no, no. I mean,
You know,
if your
he
players, even if they come up with a very creative way as a DM, there's no way you should let them even hold on to a tenth of that
yeah, there's no
because
reason to adventure after that. You're done.
yeah, there it's just one of those things where you've made so many enemies, and we're talking like enemies of not just like I pissed off some mage or yeah, a demon hates me, wants me dead. No,
This is
you have
entire
pissed off
communities.
every major guild, organization, whoever's the mayor or whoever's in charge of the city. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have it's the mayor, but
Yeah,
or the no, it can't be the governor. The
it's
mayor.
I forget her name, the
Yeah,
leader of Waterdeep, but yeah, like she
yeah.
comes in and she's
So
like,
there's
"Nah,
gonna
you."
be a lot of people that would come after you, and even if your players go, well, I got a wish and I can get away. Well, you know what? Whatever you have access to, they have access to times
Mm-hmm.
100, because
Million
it's
gold
not
pieces is
one
a lot
person.
of motivation.
Yeah, they're not gonna just let you walk in there and steal. And even if you only went in there and stole a little bit, there's still motivation to track you down and hunt
Yep,
you and display
they're very
you.
rich people with a lot of
Yeah,
resources.
and display you and hang you. They would publicly hang you if you stole a lot of
Yeah,
amount that was noticeable. Or if
and
the
I think
dragon
in that,
just said they stole a lot of your treasure, they would be
hmm
like, "Who?" And you'll be
yeah,
like, "Well, I
and I
have these
believe
protections." And I'm like, "Okay, we'll see."
right.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
you
because
can
I
get
think I
real.
believe in the module, like the money belonged to the city of Waterdeep. Like it was ill-gotten. So they're like, no, you can have a small portion, but
Yeah,
this belongs to the city of Waterdeep.
they give you that money kinda like hush money, like, "Hey, don't let
Yeah.
let people know how much we
We'll be letting
actually
people,
have
yeah,
down here."
exactly. Well, and you see this dragon did it. Arnax did it for the he got the dragon staff of Agarion. Aragon. I can't pronounce it. Agaron?
Better than I
Agaron? I
can,
can't.
so whatever
Yeah.
your
It's
guess
like
is.
it's a weird name. Agarion.
Probably that.
Yeah,
That
he
sounds
did it for
better.
the dragon staff to add, dragons love to add artifacts to their hordes. Yeah, so like I said, dragons they're the most respected, and like they're respected for their wisdom. People sometimes worship them as gods. And I believe there's something I read somewhere that the Modrons, those little
Yeah,
geometric shape guys, they confuse some gold dragons with their god.
I could see them doing that. I mean, there's some
Yeah,
really
I
interesting
forget
lore.
Primus or something his name is,
Yeah, he's the
but
one who
yeah, he's like
controls them.
a gold serpent or whatever, and they confuse him with gold dragons.
So, here's the thing, now we're getting into the wrap up with the gold dragons. As a DM, there are certain creatures you're gonna look at in the monster manual, and you're gonna realize that your players really ain't gonna fight them. These are
Hmm.
creatures, and even if they're evil and they fight them, just know that gold dragons have a lot of allies.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
so it shouldn't be some easy just, hey, I walked in and killed a gold dragon.
Yeah. No. No, you
Um,
didn't.
yeah, they're meant to like help the players. Maybe they can give them some information.
Hmm.
Or the gold dragons can put them on a quest. Like Eric said, they like to shape change and mingle with people, and maybe they see a
Hmm.
cause that might be worthy, and they could be the old man who stumbles in and goes, "I remember back in my days there was a rumor that in this cave there is blah 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 blah," or something.
Yeah.
Or if you go to this library, you can find this information in a book called. and you just
Yeah.
and the dragon would just play it off like maybe he's drunk or something. But
Yeah,
these
perhaps there's some artifact that the or treasure that the dragon itself can't get a hold of, so he would set adventurers on their own,
yeah,
you know, kinda to get it for him kinda thing.
yeah.
There's all kinds you could do with these.
There
There's
there are a lot of
tons of
things. There are a
plot
lot of
hooks.
player plot hooks you can do with that, because they are still dragons. So maybe this dragon heard about a wondrous gem or something
Mhm.
that just happens to be in a lich lair, and he's like, I don't really feel like going and fighting a lich today, but I
Right?
know who would. Enter the player characters.
Right?
And like these guys always like to go and do stuff. And who wouldn't like to have a gold dragon as a friend?
Right?
So
I'm sure that's very profitable, yeah, but be advantageous too.
yeah, so gold dragons throughout D&D, they're also bodyguards and advisors to Bahamut.
Yep,
And so, these are special dragons that shouldn't be used lightly and should be used to enhance your story or your campaign and just not
and
use some random
gold
encounter.
dragons are very high-end campaign
Yeah.
material,
So,
whether you fight them or come across them.
like even throughout history, if you go back to the old feudal systems, you know,
Mhm.
they would have like King Arthur. For the legends of like King Arthur, wasn't he supposed to have a gold dragon on his shield?
I don't remember.
I
I
thought I
don't
heard
recall.
something like that. I know they mentioned it in the deities and demigods. So they have it
Mhm,
there, but I'm kind of wondering if they kind of like just took that from lore and just added that there. But the gold
mhm.
dragon system, and forget Asian culture aside. And I'm not trying to say that in like a dismissive way or anything, because really, if you really want to learn more about like gold dragons, I would read a lot of Chinese dragon and Asian dragon history, Japanese.
Yeah, they definitely have a pull from that mythology.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting things you can learn. But if we're gonna stick with what D&D is, it's European
Yeah,
mythology
mostly the
that
westernized
borrows
dragons.
that borrows from everybody. Um, the dragon has always been like a symbol of like hope and power and wealth, and righteousness. So these are the
Mhm.
kind of things that when you think about the dragon, that's what you're thinking about adding to your campaign.
Especially metallic dragons, yeah.
Yeah, the metallic dragons, and so the gold dragon in particular, you rarely encounter one. I'm trying like to give you a brief little history of Eric and I. We both started off in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, Eric started in the white box set. Okay, that's how far he goes back with playing with
Mm.
his uncles. So I can't think of a single adventure offhand in first edition and all those modules where we bumped into a gold dragon or they mention it. There have been
Yeah,
books written on the subject, but
yeah.
until recently with Waterdeep, they didn't really put them in. And if they did, leave it in the comments because I would love to hear about that. All right,
Yeah,
people.
I didn't run across too many of the gold dragons. And even like I'm trying to think, I used to play a lot of Dragonlance, and I can't recall off the top of my head where a gold dragon comes across.
Yeah, they're just rarely used.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're super rare.
All right, people. So we're moving on. This video, we're just trying to give you like some little extra facts and insights that you're not going to find. First of all, you're not going to find some of this information in any of the Monster Man, and the other in other people's videos. So we're just trying to give you guys unique perspective to players who have loved from the game since the 1980s. All right, so here we go. Next dragon, silver dragons, were regal, lawful good creatures who often took a humanoid form and lived among humans and elves. Their breath weapons was a cone of freezing cold, and they normally layered in mountains. They were smart and preferred not to fight unless necessary. So I just picked like little tidbits from like different like a Wikipedia page and just posted this on here. just to give people a sense of, what the different writing styles that people are writing about for D&D. And, you know, in this article, I think the reason why you see a lot of past tense is because more dragons have come out since, obviously, playing different editions. And so
Mm.
there are more powerful dragons, believe it or not, than the and gold and silver dragons for good. And they're like,
Yeah, they're called like great worms now.
yeah, they're just
Yeah, they're insane.
yeah, they have other dragons out there that are more powerful. So this is in more in the perspective of we're giving you a perspective of like first edition, but we're adding in extra tidbits. So in our monster manual, I told Eric that let's just keep the facts and anything we can find just for that era when the monster manual first came out, and then
Mhm.
we'll do another video which will do the dragons, and so that's what we're currently doing. So Eric, enlighten us on what you know about silver dragons.
All right. Well, the silver dragon, they tend to be the most friendly, the most they're the most social of the dragons. They love being around what they call the small people, the humans, the humanoids and other creatures outside of silver dragons. Their true friendships are humanoids. And they love to spend, generations intermingled among the other races. They are more than any other dragon. That's their thing. They are they are lawful good, like most of the metallic dragons. They they're very low. They're what's very low to initiate combat. They would rather parlay or conduct some kind of dialogue, even with evil creatures, than to outright kill them. They have a specific respect for humanity too. While they do enjoy company of other humanoids like elves and dwarves and stuff like that, they have a specific respect for humanity because the drive and the zeal for life that humans have that elves and dwarves kind of lack because they're not as long lived.
Yep.
Humans are not as long lived as those guys are. The silver dragons find that very fascinating, and they love to collect hoards. Their treasure hoards could contain a lot of stuff concerning history,
A lot of
art
artwork.
objects and
Yeah.
books and stuff like that. They've been known to keep entire intact, seagoing ships or the remains of famous nobles or and stuff like that. So they're very concerned with history of the smaller races.
Yeah, they're almost like historians in a sense.
Yeah. And they, like I said, they love intermingling. The silver dragon that I was looking at, the one that I always think of is Silvara from Dragonlance. She's the one that falls in love with Gilthanis, and her actual name is De Argent. That's her dragon name. She also had a sister named Heart, and she's the one who fell in love with Huma Dragonbane. So there's kind of like a what's the word? I totally drew a blank. But there's kind of similarity, if you will, with silver dragons spending so much time amongst these other races that they actually do fall in love and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, silver dragons, and it's cool. Like you notice as you go from like the very first edition to the current edition, yeah, they have a cold breath weapon, but they also started giving dragons in general another type of breath weapon. That's how they kind of evolved from the first monster manual as well. Like the silver dragons also have a paralyzing breath. So it's dragons have definitely evolved the better, I think. There's so much good information on dragons nowadays. Like if you haven't had a chance to get the Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, it's an amazing source of information and just overall tools for either mostly I would say mostly for DMs that are running campaigns. It's really good. I mean, there's a few things in there for like classes and races. They add, different dragonborn races and all that, but it's an amazing tool just to learn how to use dragons in your campaigns. So, what do you got? What do you got, Joaquin?
Yeah,
Silver
just
dragons.
kind of like thinking. So, So Eric and I like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, we could sit here all day. Eventually, who knows, we'll podcast. But um,
Mhm.
so I'm reflecting upon what Eric is saying right now, and I'm thinking to myself, here's another dragon again that you don't see that often. Like if it wasn't really for Dragonlance, in
Yeah.
second edition, we would just get like little highlights. And for a
Mhm.
game that's called Dungeons and Dragons, you would think that we would like have more adventures, but I could see why they didn't because they're so powerful and
Yeah.
they're so game breaking, right? So like
They're
when you
definitely in end game scenarios.
yeah, where if when you're talking about silver dragons, the first thing I think they did that they would probably stay around besides humans and the other is elves. I could
Mhm.
see high elf lords befriending silver dragons. And if they do ride a silver dragon, it's not like they treat them like you're my steed. No,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's
They're
like
friends.
like my friend, we need to get here in a hurry. And the person's not a mage, and he'd be like, "Okay, we're gonna go." That type of situation. Like if I was living in Vegas, I'd be like, "Eric, my car broke down. You need to drop me off at work."
Be like, "Dragon, I'll be right there."
I'll be right there. So these dragons are magnificent. They're beautiful. They're there's stuff that in outer game that people are wrote poems about.
Mhm.
They're majestic. They're creatures that are fearsome and yet beautiful. And the only type of creature that or mythology I can think of like that are angels. You ever read the
Yeah.
Bible? When an angel comes down in religion, it's usually a bad thing. There are a
Right?
few times when they've come
They
down.
ain't
It's
here
like,
to
oh, it's like, oh,
yeah,
thank God. And the other times, it's like, oh God, you
right?
know. And dragons fit that class, and so silver dragons are another type where you're not going to see them. Now, the next three dragons that we're going to get into, those are the ones that appear more in modules. Um, these are the dragons that really interact with adventurers more and can base around the stories. These upper ones right here, the silver and gold, are really meant for lore.
And
And
I was thinking when we were talking, maybe because like how many of your campaigns have actually run to like max levels?
uh
Usually they kind of end soon, so maybe that's why we don't run across a whole lot of them.
well, like in, like 5th edition, you guys, I say you guys, usually life takes over, and so to
Yeah.
get past 10th to 12th, it's kind of rare. Not that you can't keep
Mhm.
a group together, is that people
It
get
just takes
bored and want
time.
to play another class.
Mhm. Yeah.
Eric,
Yeah.
it couldn't even make it to
Hey,
fifth
I
level.
went back to I went back to Barris, man.
I know. But anyway, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but
Right?
um,
Okay.
yeah. So these you're not going to see these type of creatures in games. They're just to add to the lore, and if you do encounter them, they give you the rules to help you, to show you what they can do and give you like pointers. And hopefully that's for players and for DMs, these videos I think are good for both because we're not telling you, DMs. We're not making this a DM's tip how to run a dragon. This is
Mhm.
just general information that as a player you can
Just things that we've
enjoy.
noticed over the years.
Yeah, you could as a player you can enjoy it. As a DM you can be like, oh, that's interesting. I never looked about role playing the dragons in that sense. And so hopefully we can give you these tips and ideas, and in the end, just provide a enjoyable product, for video. All right, so silver dragons, not much going on because they don't want to include the dragons as something you fight. That's
Mm.
my only take is the
Yeah.
reason why we don't see that much of them. Now, bronze dragons, that's a different story. Bronze dragons are inquisitive dragons with a fierce appearance and fascination for warfare. They will often seek to fight evil and will join good aligned armies in humanoid form. They are lawful good, live in coastal areas, and have electrical breath weapon. All right, Eric, take us away.
All right.
What did you find about the bronze dragon?
I do like bronze dragons. They're one of my favorite. They're the more, like you said, the three of the smaller dragons that are more readily or more commonly run across. The one I ran across, the famous dragon Nimur, was a bronze dragon. He uh he was at the Dragon Council during the Tyranny of Dragons module. He came down there and he made the statement, which was kind of, in the module, people were like, whoa. He made the statement that he believed that humanity was better than dragonkind
Whoa!
because because of their ability to adapt to things and change and do what needed to be done to effect that change.
He probably
So it was
said that.
kind of,
Oh,
yeah.
I said he probably said that. Didn't mean to interrupt, but I had to. He probably said that after Muhammad had his, thousandth birthday party and he didn't get an invitation.
uh,
He's all pissed. Go ahead, my bad.
right.
Keep going.
Like, man, forget you. But yeah, like you said, these dragons, they live on the coast. They primarily feed from the sea, and they're very interested in human. I don't want to say warfare, but probably conflict. They're out there, especially if it involves the overthrow of tyranny. These guys are there. They're like, fuck that guy. He's a tyrant. Let's, they'll rally the troops and try and depose said tyrant. They will either do that from behind the scenes or they are not opposed to taking it to the front lines. They're very inquisitive, like older dragons. They'll take the forms because they live near the sea. They like to they'll be like a dolphin and like check out ships and see what's going on, or may even like turn into like rats or birds and go on the ship and be like, hey. They're very inquisitive about what humans are doing. They um they are another one that likes old books or things concerning military history, like giant war machines. You can find some of those in their hordes and stuff like that. They are quick to find like artifacts or weapons of a magical nature that they feel would be better left to under their care. So that's another thing that they would tend to seek out, and as opposed to letting it fall into the wrong hands. Yeah, these are the more brash of the younger. I say younger dragons because like we were talking about, silver and gold dragons are usually the higher, the more noble of the metallic dragons, if you would. Whereas the copper, brass, and bronze are the more younger upstarts. And these guys, even though they are lawful good, they are not afraid to get their claws dirty. They also have lightning breath, so that's another. They have the two breath weapons, the lightning breath and the repulsion breath, is what they're calling it now.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, that's what we got on the bronze dragons.
So when you when you're like roll when as a DM, these are dragons that you're powerful in this sense. Once your players get to above 10th, these are the type of dragons that a paladin or a fighter of renown would actually use as a somewhat cooperative, like I was saying before, mounts. Now, like in first edition, they would just say, "Well, you can get a mount as a dragon, but you don't.
Hmm.
The dragon's not a horse, dude. So
No.
just
Well, and they did do that in the Fistban Treasury of Dragons. They do have a ranger class where, but this is like you said, it's not a mount. It's your pet that you raise and you level with, so that eventually will become a mount.
yeah, but even then, it's different. It'd be like,
Yeah, it's not like you just go into the store and buying a dragon and be like, I'm gonna ride you.
yeah, and even then, like even if you bond with the dragon lets you ride him because you're his friend and he believes
Hmm.
in whatever you're doing. You know?
It's like a unicorn too.
Yeah, same thing. And
Yeah, they don't just let anybody go.
yeah, so because these are intelligent beings, they talk.
Hmm.
It's like like every now and then you'll get together with your friends, and they'll be like, and you look at your dog, and they'll be like, "I wonder what he's thinking right now." And I'll be like, "I'll tell you
Right?
what." They ever get to that point where dogs can like tell us what they're thinking, you're not gonna like it because
Then
they're gonna be on the
you're gonna want to
phone.
hear it,
They're gonna be on the phone. Where you at? Told you I'm at
right?
work. Why do you gotta work? Why do we have to have this conversation every day? You get what are you bringing home to eat? Get your dog food. Why do I gotta eat dog food? It's like you don't want any of that. you
Right?
know? So that's like with dragons, you're not treating them like a pet. That's what I'm really trying to
Yeah,
convey.
they're
Like, and don't
definitely an equal, if not more.
yeah, and don't role play them like that. So if your character
Yeah.
does get a dragon, let the character know it's like either you want me to play him as an NPC or you can play him as another NPC. But that's what they are, and you know, y- there's a reason why in a lot of adventures you're gonna see these dragons more. It's because they do purposely put themselves out there, like they
Hmm.
like the fight, and they also like to fight other dragons. You
Yeah.
know, especially the evil dragons. They
Yeah,
they
they're
you
not
know
afraid to mix it up.
they are not afraid to mix it up. And if they think a cause is worth dying for, they will die. But most of the
Hmm.
time, you got to treat the dragons like characters. And if they get wounded too much, they're not going to just sit there and be like, okay. They would leave. You know,
Well,
they
and
would.
that's how it was, and I remember reading through the Dragonlance books and a lot of the dragons, the copper, the bronze variety, they went with the Knights of Salamia, and they're the ones that helped them learn how to ride dragons, and they went, on the front lines, and they were dying. Dragons were getting killed out there.
Yeah,
But that, these guys, they're on the front line. That's if that's what it took to fight the evil, then that's what they did.
yeah. So these there's so many interesting tidbits
Yeah, I
on
mean, you could go
other
on and on
dragon
about dragons.
stories that if
Yeah.
I was looking to run a campaign with more dragons in it or to introduce a dragon as a
Hmm.
DM, I would just start looking at other mythology sources, just about dragons in general, or maybe, like Eric
Yeah,
said,
you come
like,
up with one or two good plot hooks and you're
yeah,
good.
maybe start reading, like Dragonlance, although maybe pick out a book from there because
Yeah,
it would
really
help
good.
you develop these um these these majestic creatures and
Hmm.
give them a voice
Yeah, they're
that
not just another monster.
yeah, that earlier editions didn't really focus on doing. Like when I
Yeah,
look
they'd really
back
come in.
in first edition, I used to just play them like that. I'm like, oh, you're whatever level paladin. Well, the gods have gifted you a dragon, and now
Yeah,
you
you're
just
a
ride your
dinosaur with wings.
dragon. And then when you go into underground or whatever, the dragon just flies off, and then it was almost like you treated like you were whistling for a dog. Well, I'm back. I summoned
Right?
my dragon. Like, I look back on that. I mean, first of all, we were all kids in the game,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
still, we really missed out on opportunities on playing these creatures, and I'm hoping from that you guys will, get that just learning a little bit
Yeah, dragons
about
have
each
really come into
dragon.
their own. Like I'm not too familiar how they were in third and fourth edition because I really didn't play those, but there was a big change from second edition to fifth edition.
Oh yeah, they
So,
have really they've given them more abilities, especially like when they started. You start seeing it more in third, like in third edition. That's when like the dragons just had more spells. Like first edition, if you
mhm,
were pitching our
very much more
video,
combat oriented.
yeah, it was kind of like, well, maybe if you roll a percentage dice or blah blah blah. Now third edition, they started giving you more spell options. That's why in fifth edition they made it an option.
Hmm.
So where the DMs can
Yep.
do that. But honestly, if I want to, if my players are going to encounter an adult dragon, he's going to have some basic spells. I think it
Yeah.
just adds to it. They do have more actions, like their bonus actions or
Hmm. Yeah, they're legendary
their legendary.
actions.
That's the
They're
word. Thank
Yep.
you. The legendary action. So that's really helped because beforehand, dragon would take its turn. Um, all players do the same thing now. There's a dragon, everybody's spread out, so we're not the target of one.
Right.
So you gotta think more different when it comes to dragons and how
Then
to
there's the
use them.
whole lair action thing. If you come across them in their lair, then that's a whole other story. There's even things called regional effects now, things that happen to the land around a dragon's lair. They're so infused with magic now that they literally change the landscape around their homes. So that's really cool. As a DM, it's really cool to come up with that kind of stuff and have your players experience the dragon without actually coming into contact with the dragon itself. It's like a buildup. It's like, Jaws not appearing until an hour into the movie.
Yeah, no,
It's this
that's a
it's
good
this
analogy for that because I'm like Fizzband, like Eric was saying, if you haven't got that book, especially if you're a DM, it's an amazing read, dude. I mean, you get so
yeah.
many good ideas, and I'm actually just grabbing my copy right now. And so I'm gonna flip through this as we're talking about other dragons, but yeah, the layer abilities on this is great. Like we are actually going to be doing a review of Fizzband down the road. But all right,
All right, next dragon.
Copper
We got
dragons were
coppers.
born pranksters, jokesters, riddlers. They were chaotic good, lived in Rocky Mountains. Copper dragons had an acid breath weapon, preferred to avoid combat altogether until instead taunting and teasing their foes until they left. Oh, Copper Dragons, what do you got for us?
All right, these guys, like you said, they are the original pranksters. They love to tell jokes, riddles. They tell stories. There are stories told where copper dragons would carve out parts of their lair and have a bard live with them, just so that they can converse and tell each other stories and sing songs and music, everything. They love they are the artist dragon. They love that part of the small races society. They can't have a mean streak though. Like if it comes to their hordes or their eggs being threatened, even though they are good, they are not to be messed with. Again, they are dragons. They prefer their treasures like from the earth, like metals and precious stones and stuff like that. They they tend to hide what they have too. Like if a party of adventurers comes looking for a specific item, the copper dragon will be like, "Well, I don't know who has that. I don't have it." Or I don't have it, but I heard where you could find it. And he'll send the party off on like a wild goose chase, and then laugh about it. So these guys are very much, they enjoy humor at other expense. And if they run across people or run across other creatures that don't share in its sense of humor, they'll get annoyed. Like they literally get annoyed if their jokes and stories aren't appreciated. These are one of the dragons, like I said, the metallic dragons have two types of breath weapons now. They have an interesting slowing breath, which is just basically exactly what it sounds like. They slow your half movement. You suffer penalties. You can't use bonus actions or reactions. That I thought was another interesting breath weapon that they would have. But go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna add that. All right. So these dragons have appeared like I and I don't know if it was a bronze or the copper dragon did appear in the of all things Return to the Keep on the Borderland, which goes
Yes.
back to being a first through third, sometimes at the fifth level
Mhm.
adventure, and some kobolds had a copper, I believe it was a copper dragon's egg, and in there they say, look, if the players decide to keep the egg, when it
Mhm.
hatches, and it gives a timeline because it's ready to hatch, um, it will bond with that person like that's their mother or father.
Yeah.
They later on also give the impact of it of to their parents come. I'm pretty sure it was a copper dragon. Their parents come looking for it at the keep and start threatening the keep. Like, look, we know our eggs in this region.
Right?
We know you people, you
You
people,
people.
you people. if you don't have it, you know the whereabouts or who bought it. We're giving you a few weeks to come up with our dragon. Now the keep, you got to role play the keep being up in arms, and so um, I'm gonna add to this story with the copper dragon. In that adventure, because I played it out, and I'm gonna tell you about this character named Melody real quick. Um,
Mhm.
she in the section it says if if you allow the copper dragon to be born under the care of the kobolds in time will rule that valley section because they will have a copper dragon with them.
Right?
So my friend Melody, she played a thief, and I go, you find this big egg, and they had a mage and get his little check, and I could tell him. He's like, wow, according to my readings, this is a copper dragon egg. And so they were like, what? And then the kobolds, because they didn't have gold, they painted copper all around
Oh,
all their
jeez.
coins. So first the characters were like, "Whoa, we got this treasure," and I was like, "You notice when you pick up the coins that the paint is starting to rub off because it's so cheap." And so they're like, "What?" I go, "Yeah, it's all copper." So they kept, keep a long story short because it really is a long story about this character. She kept it. So they go back to the keep, and they hear this ruckus about, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do? There's a missing baby dragon egg that hasn't hatched. The parents are giving us about another week and a half. Then they're gonna come back."
That's a long ass time.
Yeah. So, or maybe maybe it's a little bit shorter. Maybe they said a week, but either way, it wasn't that long. So then I told the group, "You hear about this? You're in the average. I mean, you're in the tavern. You hear about this. What are you gonna do?" And so I'm thinking to myself, well, they're the heroes of the story. They're gonna do the noble thing. They're gonna give
Nope.
back the dragons, and I was like, "Oh, I could role play this later. They now have an ally." Melanie goes, "I'm keeping him or her." I was like, "What?"
Oh, man.
I was like, "Are you serious?" She's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm a little halfling. Of course I'd want to keep a baby dragon." I was like, "Oh my God, Mel. Okay, all right." So as a DM, you think it's gonna go one way, and then it gets
They will
completely.
always derail your best laid plans,
Yep.
man.
You go 180 and then it turns into another 180 and then you're upside down. And so
Mhm.
I was like, okay. So I go, well, what are you guys gonna do? You can't stay here. And so they went back into the caves of chaos to keep adventuring.
No doubt.
And the dragons went and polymorphed down, like because they
Yep.
can, and searched every crevice of the keep. Everything. Threatened people, root out some evil that they found. The good way, because the players weren't biting on that hook, so I just had the copper
Yeah.
dragons find them and threaten them and eat them eventually. And they eventually she starts raising the dragon, and then she goes, "Well, when can I ride it on my halfling?" I go, "It's still a baby, Mel." I go, "It's gonna
Right?
be a
Yeah, you
while."
got about 40 years to go,
Yeah,
at
we got a
least.
while, girl. So eventually I kind of caved in and let it, once it became like medium size.
Yeah.
So once 5 levels had passed in the campaign, I was like, all right, I go, but you can't burden yourself with treasure, okay? Or
Yeah.
anything. Because he's just barely holding on to you, give him a name. But
Mhm.
I always haunted them with the fact that
He's gonna
wherever
come back.
they would go, every now and then they would hear about a bounty hunter looking for a group of characters, a group of adventurers, have a copper dragon. And when the first time I introduced that, they were all in my living room and stuff, and they were all laughing, as we're playing and talking about the tavern scene. And then when I said that, you overhear this conversation, um, everybody stopped. Like the room went dead silent.
Mhm.
And there's like, yeah, I heard there's like 100,000 gold pieces plus the grateful favors of these copper dragons who will not stop
Mhm.
until they find their child.
Their baby.
Yeah. And so, one of the characters is like, really? Well, how'd this happen? And, who are these people? Blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, they found some kobolds who had lived because they didn't kill all the kobolds.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
kobolds um,
Ratted them out.
ratted them out, gave them
Yep.
descriptions, everything.
That's what you get.
So it was just one of those things that I never, I never pulled the trigger on, but I let them know. It was just fun, like having that loom over their heads every now and then.
Mhm.
And then even at one point, I even had the dragon say, "Are my parents looking for me?" And Melody would be like,
Oh,
"Melody, just to rub it in after like about 2 months in," and she's like, "I don't know." And so I made her roll her, her persuasion, and she rolled really high. And then I also like put the thought behind. I go, the dragon seems like he wants to believe you because she's taking care of him all this time. This is her,
yeah.
like. And so the dragon's like, okay, well, I guess
I
if
don't believe
anybody
you.
did steal an egg and they found out their parents would look, they would give them back. I mean, you'd give them back, wouldn't you? You're good. You're a good person. I love, I love
If
turning
you were
that
good,
knife.
you would give them back in the first place.
Yeah, but most player characters wouldn't do that. But anyway,
Right.
that's my interesting Copper Dragon story.
Right on.
And
Yeah,
so,
I did happen to find one copper dragon. It was really like I was surprised it was so hard to find some of these. I found another one that was from Waterdeep or Forgotten Realms.
yeah.
But it was Ilnazara was a copper dragon known as Lady Z. Another dragon ended up falling in love with another humanoid. This time it was the Drow mercenary Jarlaxle.
What is
He
this?
was also in the
Twilight before Twilight?
right. No, he was another one that was in the Dragon Heist.
Yeah.
So her and her sister, they were once approached by the Witch King Zengi
Yeah.
to join his army in exchange for becoming Draco Liches. They both turned it down.
Oh, okay.
That's how powerful these dragons could have been. And they're like, nope, be siding with the side of humanity was more important to them. Yeah, I thought that was a little interesting. Famous copper dragon.
All right.
I can't
So,
remember. I think Fireflash was either a bronze or a copper dragon from Dragonlance. He was another good character.
yeah, see, I
Yeah,
kind
that
of
was
missed out on that. I think I bought a few supplements, but then I wasn't. I was kind of like out of the game by then. But I've always enjoyed buying and reading D&D. All right,
yeah,
so I'm
I
looking at the
love
time here.
Dragonlance.
We're like
Okay.
47 minutes, man. We gotta,
Woo,
gotta,
all
we're
right, we
gonna
gotta
move
get
on,
to the
people.
brass dragons.
The
Yeah,
brass,
we get
and then after this is what? The bronze?
no, we already did bronze. This is the last one.
This is. All right.
Yeah.
So that's good. We're trying to keep these videos under an hour. Our our manager and editor, Dallas, Eric's wife, made suggestions.
I'll be talking all night. That's what she said.
Yeah, pretty much. So I told Eric, I go, look, I have 3 slides. Get to the third slide of each dragon to wrap it up scene. So,
Mm-hmm.
brass dragons are extremely talkative and love the intense
Yes.
heat of desert, so they are similar. They often
Yeah.
engage foes and friends alike in the hours of the long winded conversations. They avoid combat if possible, but will use their breath weapon, a cone of sleep, gas to subdue foes if threatened. They are the weakest of the classic metallic dragons, but still chaotic
Oh,
good. And, I was telling Eric when I found that, I was like, that's a pretty bold statement, but,
they're
I
still
include,
fucking dragons, man.
yeah. So, I guess that's West Coast Geeks official stance that, you know, they're the,
They're
they're
still
the weak,
dragons.
they're the weakest. And I think they get that label or got that label is because when it comes to like pure raw power, right, with their weapons or breath weapons and stuff,
Mhm.
they don't do that type of damage, right?
Yeah, they are the smaller of the dragons.
Yeah.
They're not we sure in dragon kind smaller tend to be weaker, but they I look at them more of like the younger of the dragon species. The more impetuous of the dragon species. They're not as wise, even in their older ages, they're not as wise as some of the other like silver or gold or even copper dragons. So that's how I tend to look at it when they say they're the weakest. They're misunderstood, man.
Well, tell us some more facts so we can understand them.
Yeah. So the brass dragons, really quick, they love to talk, whether it's just for the sake of conversation or being a conceited narcissistic dragon, they just love to hear themselves talk. There's stories of, if a brass dragon is talking to somebody and that guy, that person just walks away, the dragon will follow it. And if it tries to escape, it will like put it to sleep and wake up and it's like restrained. It's like you're gonna listen to me talk whether
It's
you
like,
like it or not, you
as
know?
I was saying before you went to sleep. You're like,
Yeah,
what?
exactly. Before you so rudely fell asleep. So they love to talk to creatures. They love magic items and stuff that lets them converse with intelligent beings, whether it's an intelligent weapon or some kind of receptacle that holds a creature, like a genie bottle or something. They love those kind of things. And like I said, they need to be entertained. And they're very needy that way, I guess you could say, if a dragon were to be needy.
Yeah.
There are also not too many examples of famous dragons, end quote, in D&D. The only one I could find was Eleuthera. And she was another dragon. She was an ancient brass dragon that was called to the Dragon Council during the Tyranny of Dragons.
And
So
speaking of
oh
which,
look, there's Fire Flash on the screen. Sorry, that's
no, no, no.
oh,
I was like, when you were talking about that,
Verminard, Ember, and Fire Flash with Verminard. But yeah, brass dragons are, and they're a good dragon to, if you're running mid-level adventures, they're a nice little good dragon to have in there. Although I don't believe they get the ability to shape change until their ancient status. But I mean, you could always change that around. Yeah, that's brass dragons. They are the young. Technically, I don't know if all dragons were made at the same time, but I kind of view them as the younger, if not
the newest.
technically, then at least I don't know, mentally, I guess they're more brash. I guess you can say. Yeah, that's brass dragons, man. They're talkers. They love the deserts. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the brass
So here's the
dragon.
thing. Like, I kind of feel like when they made these dragons, brass, copper, and bronze, right? So
Hmm.
in the monster manual, that book was rushed. There's a lot you can
Yeah,
just
the
you
original
can
one was definitely rushed.
the first one was just rushed, and you can feel that they were just like, like trying to pull all this stuff together. I think there's like they make the claim of over 350 monsters, but they include like elves and I think like
And
pirates
dogs.
and dogs and
Yeah,
camels and stuff like that.
three different kinds of eels.
Yeah, well, no, that's different. I could get that, but I'm just talking about creatures that you normally wouldn't think as a monster, but they have a
Hmm.
legit 300 monsters, and so I have a feeling like with brass dragons, they they blended all of these three dragons together because they're like I'm looking through Fizzbands right here, and it's like bards
Yeah,
sometimes seek out brass dragon layers and hope the dragon's whims will enhance their creativity like a muse. The
yeah,
more
they're more.
experienced bard, hold on, give me a second. Bard know not to overstay their welcome, least they
Mhm.
awaken cradling a skunk cabbage Fizzband. So, all these dragons are similar in nature, and I kind of feel that they didn't know what direction they really want to go with good dragons.
Yeah,
Because once we do the chromatic dragons, we're gonna
yeah,
have
those guys
so
are
there is so much information
straight
because
aggro.
because this is what the player characters are gonna be constantly engaging in, fighting,
Mhm.
meeting, hearing about. Um, I want to say the first publication in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons that you actually fight a dragon, because in the Holmes box set, you get B1, Search of the
Hmm.
Unknown, no dragon. Caves of Chaos, fight a Minotaur, a couple other little big creatures, but no dragon. Against the Giants is the first taste of a printed module for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. You meet a giant, I mean, meet a dragon. And you don't get
Hmm.
that until G2 when you
Yep.
go against the Frost Giant Jar. And he has two white dragons.
White dragons. Yep.
And then in the following, of course, is the fire giant. So you're like, well, I met some white dragons, so I guess I'm gonna meet some red. And you do. Spoilers. And so those are your first two examples of early Dungeons and Dragons. They're developing these modules, this first series, trying to figure out what this game is. What's it gonna become? Like, man, if you ask somebody in the '80s when this first game, it's like, you know, 50 years from now, this game's gonna be more popular than ever. And they're gonna be doing movies. All these books have been
Right.
written, and there's gonna be more people playing and accepting it than you hiding in your parents' basement right now. Maybe I would have looked at you like you were crazy, dude. I was like,
Yeah. What are
"What?
you
Get the
talking
hell
about?
out of here!"
You mean we're not gonna be beaten up for playing this game?
Yeah, pretty much, or laughed at. Um,
Right.
it's just like one of those situations where they develop good creatures, but they kind of have just left it up to the DM when to include them. They give you
Hmm.
stats in case the player characters act stupid. And these dragons are there to really help you as a DM just enhance the story. Now, when we get into like I said, back into dramatic dragons, then it's going to be
Yeah.
like we're talking about these famous red dragons.
Yep.
They did an adventure called Dragon Mountain. I believe it was Dragon Mountain, where
Hmm.
there was this one red dragon, and her mountain time shifts or plane shifts, and there is a many colonies of kobolds that serve her. Did you ever get to play that, or did you even hear about that?
I don't think so.
Oh, really great, great, great adventure. You want to look at if you're a DM and you want to look at some cool ideas to implement or even run, that's one of them, because there is nothing like having a mid, like 7th to 10th level group of player characters who are on their way to go find this dragon and her treasure and take it from her. And on their way up, have like kobolds drop boulders on them, and while they're trying to dodge, hitting them with multiple wands of magic missile.
Damn
Um,
kobolds.
yeah, they got really brutal in there. I mean, that's why I loved it, dude. I was like, yes, you want to? I can use a cobalt with a wand of fireballs or a necklace of
Right.
fireballs. Thank you. Now the player
Right.
characters get to see what it feels like to set everybody on fire. So you know, um, they have expanded. There are some other adventures that they have, made that are somewhat dragon focused, but none like that one. I gotta say that really, until they did this other one, like the first time they did, there was a Tiamat adventure. I want to say it might have been in third edition, where you were out trying to. The cult of Tiamat had taken over,
Hmm.
and so then they brought that into fifth edition. So other than
Yeah.
that,
Tyranny of Dragons.
yeah, Tyranny of Dragons. So other than that, they use dragons more as like singular encounters and not building a campaign around, or even
Hmm.
an adventure. They're usually tucked in the adventure or module, that type of thing. But there are a lot of creative uses for dragons. You just have to you know take your time with them. If
Yeah.
you're going to introduce a dragon, that'd be my best advice. Take your time, see what it's been written about them in the monster manual, and then find other lore. and then
Make it a character of your own kind of thing.
yeah, and so that way, when the player characters meet up with the dragon, it's not like, and you meet this copper dragon. It shouldn't be like that. It should be more
Mhm.
of,
These
like
are
especially with
intelligent beings.
yeah, like especially with the copper dragon. Like the copper dragon could be, he's the type that when you're setting up camp, that you got your campfire going, and then all of a sudden he puts an illusion that the fire is not there. And so then you put your hand over there like, wait, what? And then you put your hand like, why isn't there a fire? Ah, you burn yourself. And then you would hear a laughter, right? And you're like,
Right?
and then your first thought would be like, damn fairies, you know? But it's the copper
Right?
dragon, like you're right about the
Yeah,
copper
they
dragon,
they
like
are the
sending you
pranksters.
on wild goose chases. They're not trying to hurt or maliciously try to kill you, but they are trying to embarrass you. And
It
if
definitely gave the dragons now in 5th edition more of a personality,
yes,
especially the younger ones.
which I'm really glad because like I said, we have really moved to um more role playing. So I'm gonna give you another little
Mhm.
fact, folks. Role playing wasn't invented by fifth edition or even focus on. There are plenty of books that I have that second edition came out with, and there's all kinds of D&D guides and books and everything that stress,
Mhm.
role playing and this and that. So, D&D for the new players, when you try to think that you've really come up with something, most it's been there or done that. And so,
Yeah, we've always done role playing, even with the 1st edition stuff. Role
yeah,
playing was
like they
always a
try
big
to like
thing.
they really do give first edition a bad rap in the sense they just try to act like it was just hack and slash and that was it. And I'm not
Yeah,
going to say that it wasn't, but there was more to it than that. And if all you
yeah.
did was just play it, like I met a couple of people like that. I go, "Oh, you want to play D&D?" I go, "Yeah." And so I came. I go, "We're going to play this module. You ever played it? Because if you let me know, because then I can make some tweaks to it." And they're
Yeah.
like, "Play a module?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What do you play?" He's like, "Oh, my DM, he would just, get some graph paper and then draw and then or buy the pre generated dungeons and he would just
Mm.
roll on a random chart and that was D&D." He's like, "You could go from fighting kobolds in one room to the next room. It's like, and now there's a vampire staring at you." Like, "What?" I was like, "What?"
No story whatsoever.
Yeah, and so I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to say that's the wrong way. I'm just gonna say that's a different approach, but
Different, yeah, that's what it is.
you know, this is how we play, and if you like it, you can stay with it. Not go back to random rooms." So, you know,
Yeah,
I think
that's, go
yeah,
ahead.
the dragons are the symbol of Dungeons and Dragons for a reason. You know,
Literally the namesake.
you know, and it's there to catch you. You hear the name Dragons, you're like Dungeons and Dragons. If they would have named the game anything else, I don't think it would have caught on as quick, you know?
Right?
Because if you would just say Fantasy Dungeons or something like that or Fantasy World, people would still play, but it's just something about dragons throughout our history that people have enjoyed learning about, looking at pictures.
Mhm.
So now we're doing the wrap up, which we already started. So join us on Fridays for new Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual videos. After we get through that series, we are going to do the original player's handbook. Then from there, we're going to dive into the first set of modules and talk about that in depth. And then as a DM, I'm going to give you tips on how to run those. And Eric will throw in his 2 cents. And
Yeah.
then so the next on this series, as you can see, is Chromatic Dragons, and this is the wrap up. So, um, I guess the question will be, Eric, like, I know you said you didn't get to play against or haven't used
I've
dragons.
thought more about it, and I did play in a lot of the Dragonlance stuff, but I don't I mean, I guess The first dragon we ever came across. Now, when I think about it, we did do Dragons of Despair, which I believe was DL1,
Yeah.
and that was Kasanth, the black dragon. And like I'm trying to think, metallic dragons. I don't think we ever came across because they were more once they got to the Knights of Salamia, Battle of the High Claris Tower. That was more when you ran into the metallic dragons, the good dragons. Yeah, I don't think anything before that I'd run into a good dragon.
Yeah, it's kind of like the message I've been trying to portray throughout this entire video is when player characters meet a dragon, should be a great role playing experience and
Mm-hmm.
something they remember fondly about the game. Not I just killed some red dragon.
Unless they make it angry and it kills him.
Yeah, something like that. But and so that's it. We will be doing individual dragons, but way later on down the road, we're gonna
Yeah,
get into
yeah.
more like you know, their history, how many children they had, the wormlings, any other little like interesting tidbits. Like this is just more of a series that
I
it
just thought it'd be cool to kind of highlight because the original monster manual itself didn't really do the dragon justice. So I
no, they
thought
didn't.
maybe seeing how they've evolved in the game would give them the grandiosity that they deserve.
And that's a good place to end it. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it this far, definitely deserve a
Comments on your
like.
favorite metallic dragon and why.
Exactly. Do that. And just know that my channel, West Coast Geeks, even though it's been mostly Magic the Gathering videos, I'm gonna limit that down to like 2 weeks. So we're gonna be start doing more Dungeons and Dragons videos. There's so much stuff we still have to get to. We still have to get the Spelljammers. You have to get to 6th edition. I don't care if you're gonna call it 1D and we're calling it sixth edition, because there's too many major fundamental changes to player characters and other races just to be like, well, we just kind of took a little tweak here and we added a little something there. No, no, no. You fundamentally have changed the game for these races. So we're gonna get into that. And then you know what? It's not a bad thing either. I'm not trying to say that, 1 D&D is bad. I'm just saying that 1 D&D sounds corny, and that's why I'm just going to be calling it six edition. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll catch you next one.
Take it easy, guys.